As a courtesy to others, please silence your cell phones during the meeting and engage in conversations outside the chambers. My cell phone is off. So, and now it's my pleasure to ask you to please rise as we have students to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight we have Armando Delan and Princess Carvajal from Emory Elementary School. That's my alma mater. I went to Emory when I was in second grade. Let me just read, Armando and Princess, let me read something about you. I want to thank Principal Emory Jennifer Grondock for coming. Armando is a student council representative for his classroom. He really enjoys working with computers and at home has been writing code in Scratch. Wow. Additionally, he enjoys reading and playing basketball, and he's, I think, the best dressed young man we've ever had in the history of IB. It's very important. Thank you. Princess is a student council representative for a classroom, and it's her 11th birthday today. Happy birthday, Princess. When completing her classwork, Princess shows tremendous effort and perseverance. Though she is sometimes quiet, she's an outstanding public speaker. When she is not at school, she enjoys helping her father maintain her aquarium, and she's also very, very well dressed. Thank you both. And also, are there any agenda changes?
Mayor, staff is asking the council strike item 5.3. We received some information this afternoon that we would like to further digest and then bring the information back to you. That is the item on the undergrounding district.
Sounds good. Is there a motion? Do we need to have a motion to approve that?
Yes.
Is there a motion? Second, please vote.
Mr. Mayor, can we have an oral vote, please? An oral vote?
All in favor of striking 5.3
5.3
from the record or from the agenda, please vote. Aye. Aye.
Motion.
Any nays? Good. Okay.
Motion carried unanimously by those present, Bill Bray absent.
What are we doing? Just for the record, we'll be doing oral votes all evening. Apparently, if someone doesn't show up.
No.
All system, is that right?
I'm doing it right now.
Oh, you're doing. Oh, working on. Okay, that's good. Okay. All right. We can start with council reports, starting with Councilmember Patton.
Sure. A lot going on last week and this week as well. I went to the Dempsey Surf Contest. I'm not sure what number that is. Would you know, Mr. Mayor?
That's number 12.
Number 12, and it was a great event. A lot of kids, a lot of adults, a lot of old faces, new faces, and it seemed like a big hit. And I'm sure Mr. Mayor could fill us in on more details. Military Appreciation Day was amazing. When I walked up there, I could not believe the crowd that was there for our first annual Military Appreciation Day. And everybody I spoke to was very pleased with that event, and I can't wait till next year because as our first event to be such a big hit, our second year is going to be even bigger, I can imagine. And then last night I went to the El Nino Sea Level Rise workshop, well over 100 people there. It was more of a lesson of the science of what El Nino is, and I learned a lot, and I hope everybody else that went there learned a lot. And I look forward to the future workshops on El Nino coming up because it is the real deal. And then finally, I know I'm going to steal somebody's thunder, but he's going to probably tell more, Mr. Aaron. The Boys and Girls Clubs having their big sports park rally, and that's this Friday from 4 to 6:30. Concessions, prizes, games. KUSI is going to be there to cheer on Mar Vista High School's game, which starts at 7. Please go. That's it. Thank you.
Great. Councilmember Bragg.
Thank you. I too was in attendance at many of those events as well. I did really want to thank our staff for our Military Appreciation Day under the leadership of Ed Villa, who seemed to be everywhere the entire weekend. And then also Dean and Paulina, who just really made this event happen. our three military organizations, the Fleet Reserve, American Legion, and the VFW Post, were there, as this was Military Appreciation Day. And it was said, well, gosh, if you guys are going to be having booths, how are we going to be able to appreciate you? But that's how they wanted to spend the day. And some of the proceeds went to them, as well as to Courage to Call. We had many volunteers in the community. Boys and Girls Club had an incredible boot camp going on. The Chamber of Commerce was there, and Women's Club was there. It was a wonderful event. I think we gave away close to 2,000 appreciation bags to military families. The bags were provided by Navy Federal Credit Union, so I'd like to thank them as well. But it was really an opportunity for this community to show appreciation to our men and women in uniform, and I too look forward to many more of those events. On behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, I would like to announce that an event near and dear to my heart is Saturday, November 8th. It's Small Business Saturday. So I know people are going to be planning your holiday shopping. Please shop locally before you go out of town. Oh, excuse me. I meant November 28th. I'm sorry. November 28th. Yeah. And we did have representatives at our meeting last night from the business community. So if you can show any appreciation for our local businesses, it would really help out. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Spriggs.
Thanks. Very busy month, a lot involving sea level rise, water-related issues, etc. On the 6th of this month, I had the privilege of representing, being one of the two city representatives from the League of California Cities for the southern part of the state at a California Coastal Commission workshop looking at and examining their sea level rise guidelines to the cities of the state of California. And I had the opportunity on that occasion, and it was a major meeting. We were able to sit with the coastal commissioners. There was a full gallery. There must have been at least 150 people attending, a lot of very interested people from all over the state. The point I think I was able to get across is that the Coastal Commission has tended in the past to adopt one-size-fits-all policies. And what I was trying to get across to them, and I was told afterwards that it was reasonably effective, was that a city like Imperial Beach, which is low-lying and has water on three sides, needs flexibility in how permits are approved by the Coastal Commission. And because what's at stake over the long term when you look at sea level rise going forward many, many years is the potential inundation of the entire community unless we take appropriate defensive measures. And that's not the case with most municipalities that are coastal. Most municipalities have options to retreat or use other approaches in dealing with sea level rise, more options than we do. So I think I got that across. There was, again, the wonderful El Nino and sea level rise workshop last night. I was very proud of our community because of the number of people who came out. Today, there was a regional climate collaboration workshop. Mr. Nakagawa, is he here? Yeah, he was attended that as well as did I. And that had to do with the rolling out of the latest scientific modeling for sea level rise for the southern part of California. It's called Cosmos 3.0. And the tool isn't fully developed yet for public use, but very soon there will be ways in which we can all access it and put in different scenarios and see what the outcomes are. Last week, I attended the Metro JPA Wastewater Commission, which I'm appointed to by this city council. And it was very interesting. The Point Loma waste treatment plant is has a 5-year permit pending with the EPA and others. And the hope was that the city could do this pure water recycling program instead of having to build a new plant there for secondary treatment, which would cost even more. So the effort has been made to get legislation that would exempt Point Loma from having to go to secondary treatment and leave it at advanced primary treatment. The quid pro quo being that the San Diego region is going to put less water through there anyway because it's going to be recycled for potable reuse. So it turns out that the prospects of getting any legislation out of Washington at this point are very dim, and getting regulatory changes aren't very probable either. So the Environmental Protection Agency, Western Region, sent San Diego, the mayor, Falconer, a nice letter saying that they would be happy and pleased to review every 5 years a permit application, which leaves us right back to the situation where we're at risk of having the double whammy of major investments for recycling, plus having to face the possibility of having to go to secondary at Point Loma. So just wanted to let you know that that's something that the city is still going to be looking at. And finally, earlier this week, I'm appointed to the Independent Rates Oversight Commission as one of my assignments from Metro JPA. And there was a full report on the water situation in the state and the region. And San Diego is doing very well on conservation. The governor has adopted or put out an order giving the State Water Resources Control Board continuing authority, extending their authority from this January until October to regulate water use in the state. So it looks as though the drought remedies are the regulations in effect are going to be continuing until well into next year. That's all I've got for now. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Spriggs. Today there was, first I just want to reiterate, beyond just how wonderful Military Appreciation Day and the workshop last night, which actually was attended by 400 people, which might be one of the largest attended public workshops in the history of IB. So I think, Ed, you counted, you did the count? Right, good. So that's really outstanding. Very professionally and well run, very much a team effort. Last night's event was just absolutely superb in terms of the logistics and the way it looked, and the way it was laid out, and the speakers. So I was very impressed with that. And same thing for Military Appreciation Day. So I want to thank all our city staff, and of course I'd be on a Military Appreciation Day. It was just a really, really nice event. And I know that the feedback was just tremendous. So thank you very much. Today was a meeting of a binational working group that is coming after the signing of a treaty minute between U.S. and Mexico to talk about cleaning up the Tijuana River. So they met at the Tijuana Estuary from 2 to 5. Chris Helmer from the city of Imperial Beach was part of that. They're going to have 3 working groups, one on water quality, one on trash, and one on sediment. And really, obviously, Chris Helmer at the city of Imperial Beach is the lead person on really the technical knowledge of how we need to clean up that river. It's not going to be easy. The feedback I talked to the governor's representative of Baja California, who told me basically it was the U.S.'s fault, that they there's some protocols they don't really clear about. So my message is always the same thing. We just need to work together to make things better, and we don't need to point fingers. So we have an uphill battle, but we're going to continue working on it, and I'm really glad that Chris Helmer is our point person on that. Last week I was invited to attend the Global Wellness Summit in Mexico City. I was the only mayor there. I was a meeting of people from 42 countries of the health industry, the wellness tourism industry, medical profession, and all kinds of interesting people interested in promoting global health and wellness. So it actually was really good to be there right after our last meeting, in which Councilmember Bragg had talked about, and we supported the idea of really doing a lot more to promote health and well-being in Imperial Beach. And I participated in 3 sessions, one on actually promoting surfing tourism, which was really great. Lots of interest. I had a table with people from Bali, Australia, Ireland, South Africa, California. So that was a very good dynamic discussion, and Imperial Beach is on the map for that. Another session on actually what governments can do to promote health and wellness and well-being. The consensus at the meeting is that, and we had some very high-level people that presented at the World Economic Summit in Davos, Switzerland. They talked about really the way the world's going is that wellness and well-being and health is going to be the way that governments move to, and quality of life, to really talk about how well they're doing it. GDP doesn't really get it. And so I thought that was good. And I think so our focus on that is actually going to be really cutting edge. And as the only mayor there, IB's on the map. And it was very interesting to be there. I'm thankful for the Pure South and Pacifica for actually working on getting me an invite there. And then finally, the last one was on wellness tourism and the idea that this is a global industry, and our Pure South Hotel is part of that whole international circuit where people go to places to actually feel good and be healthy and really have a nice time. And it's not just about the experience they have at a hotel that they talked about. It's the experience they have with people on the street that really makes a difference. So the feedback we get from tourists that stay at our hotel is that they really love the interaction they have with our community, and that friendly communities like Imperial Beach are places that people want to come back to. Those conversations and friendships that people make actually really make a difference. So we're doing the right thing. So it was a very good opportunity to get the word out about Imperial Beach. And then finally, there's a presentation by a guy named Louis Schwartzberg, who's done TED Talks about, and his big, very famous filmmakers work with Oprah and stuff, and really talked about the idea of being positive and showing beauty. And I think our movement to really clean up IB and do neighborhood revitalization and really show our best, even the way we do our imagery and we talk about Imperial Beach, is really, really important. It's making a difference. So anyway, that's it.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
I forgot. You were mentioning about the hotel tomorrow evening from 6 to 8 in the community room.
All right.
We have our new hotel developer as well as architect there, and it'd be a good chance for everybody to show up and give their 2 cents about what they like, maybe what you don't like, and give your feedback. And that's tomorrow from 6 to 8.
Thank you, Mr. Patton.
You're welcome.
Now we have communications from city staff. Fire Chief French will report on the El Nino Sea Level Rise workshop. And just for clarification, is Chief French's title Public Safety Director or Fire Chief, or both?
Yes.
Both. Thank you. Okay, I just to make sure I heard both last night. So I want to make sure I'm referring to you as the correct title. All right, thank you.
All right.
20 years as captain. Everyone's still coming.
Okay.
Yeah. Mayor, City Council, I'm just going to do a little follow-up on last night's El Nino Sea Level Rise workshop. It was well attended by our citizens. We listened to the concerns of the citizens, and we're going to be on all those concerns, and we're going to take care of those and follow up on that. And so the people in the crowd that did miss last night's workshop, we're going to be getting the word out about El Nino and what to do and how to prepare for it as an individual, as a family, and as a community. So we do have some El Nino flyers if you need those. We do have a flyer on our sandbag program. We do have sandbags at the station and a pile of sand, and we'll be willing to help you fill those if you're not capable of doing that. And we do have some flyers on how to prepare a kit for either 3 days, 7 days, to be prepared if you need to leave your home.
Hey, Chief, could you talk to them a little bit about the importance of the reverse 911 and the fact that a lot of people don't have landlines, and we need to get you signed up for the reverse 911 with your cell phones?
Yeah, there are a couple programs out there. There is the reverse 911 program that you can sign up for, and there's also an Alert San Diego. So if you go on to readysandiego.gov,
It's readysandiego.org, I think.
Org.
Yeah, readysandiego.org.
.org. There is those places on there where you can sign up, and it'll give you information, or if you don't have a landline, signing up for these will get those messages to your cell phones. So it's an important part of disaster planning and being prepared.
Or if you're not home.
Or if you're not home.
Any questions comments from our council? Great. All right, thank you so much. And I did the Alert San Diego today. I did sign my wife up, and I saw that was good. Now we have any more speaker slips? So I have Pastor John Griffin from the United Methodist Church.
fellow mayor and members of the city council. I come to
Just
inform
please,
you.
actually, just for your record, I know I said your name, but your record.
Oh,
and your
yeah,
address.
my name is John Griffin, pastor of the Imperial Beach United Methodist Church. Good to see you all. I'm coming to inform you and invite you to an event that we're having at the church. This is being sponsored by the United Methodist. You have flyers actually as well. This is sponsored by the United Methodist Church as well as our IB Homeless Collaborative. Part of the work of the collaborative is to address issues that cause and keep individuals homeless. And one of those issues that we've identified is the availability of a very inexpensive beer in Imperial Beach through the liquor stores. It's one of the brands is called Four Loko. A 23.5 ounce can has the same kick of about 5 beers. And so you can buy that for about 2 for $5 and sometimes cheaper, and you can be done for the day. And we're teaming up with the Institute of Public Policy, who has done some events here. They did It's Too Easy, addressing issues of underage drinking, and they're going to be doing this presentation for us because the Four Loko product is actually marketed to younger people. It has fruit flavors in it or energy drinks in it, and so it's a desirable drink of our younger kids. So we are doing an information event on December 10th, Thursday, December 10th at the church from 6 till 7:30 p.m. We invite the public to be a part of this information experience and have discussion. And then we hope to then bring to the city council the encouragement of having an ordinance that would see the end of this beverage in our liquor stores, as well as other items that are actually contributing to this as well, like the small airplane liquor bottles. But this in particular is something that we want to see ended. So we hope that you and the community will come December 10th to the church. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
First, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is James De La Serna. I'm the program director at the Boys and Girls Club Sports Park. Just want to give some updates. I'm passing around some flyers of some stuff upcoming. One of the things we have is the Sports Park Exchange. That's coming up this Saturday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Sports Park was donated 120 total sports equipment items for the entire month of October. And so the end of one drive marks the beginning of another. At least that's how I see it. And our form is in the form of exchange. We would like to kickstart our canned food drive, which the proceeds will be given to IB Community Harvest. In order to exchange, we recommend 5 canned good items for 1 sporting item, 10 canned good items for 2 sporting items, etc. Just to put it out there, our objective is not to turn any child away for whatever reason. So if they can't donate those canned goods, of course we'll make the exceptions. So, and then also on to the next flyer that I handed around was for the pep rally. This Friday, Mar Vista hosts a home playoff game at 7 p.m. Sports Park would like to host a pregame pep rally from 4 to 6:30 p.m. We anticipate live performances, appearances from the football team, cheer squad, students, and a community alum. It's free entry to the event where we give green and gold beads, like Mardi Gras beads, to everyone in attendance. Those have been given today, so those are pretty cool to get. And we also plan on having games for all ages, including minute to win it prizes, contests, as well as raffle prizes, including tickets to the game. So stop by, check it out, and support our local high school team. Any other questions, please email me, which is listed below, or check us out for further updates on Facebook or Instagram.
Thank you very much for that great update and all the great work you're doing.
I have a comment or a
Oh,
question.
I'm sorry, yes.
Thank you. I was just wondering if anybody just wanted to donate canned goods to your event.
Yes,
That
they
would be
certainly
okay,
can.
and not if somebody just wanted to donate food, they could.
They can. And also, that actually, so this Saturday is when it begins, November 21st. The canned food drive is from the 21st of November to the 21st of December. So that entire time, we will be collecting canned goods and then donating that to IB Community Harvest.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. All right, now I'd like to entertain a motion to approve consent calendar item numbers 2.1 through 2.7. Is there a motion? please vote. Does that work?
Motion carried unanimously by those present, Bilbray absent.
Great. Now we move on to the reports portion of the evening. 5.1, Code Compliance Workshop Follow-Up. Assistant City Manager Dush will give a report on the item.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. This is a brief report out from the September, I believe it was, 23rd Code Compliance Workshop that we had to talk about a variety of issues. And this particular component of the report out is really going to focus on some of those nuisance violations that we heard of, the type 1 that we described in the workshop. And what we're looking at doing is, as I go through the presentation, really identifying 3 particular elements for sort of new policy direction. That new policy direction, again, to address the sort of issues as it relates to nuisance violations that are non-life safety issues, would be a policy that we talked briefly about that we're calling the U+2. What this policy does is it talks a little bit about how not to or how to approach code complaints that the city gets. We're also looking at identifying a blight priority and abatement acceleration, and I'll talk about each of those briefly. So the U+2, right now, if we get a complaint, we talked about, and this is some of the feedback that we got from the workshop and from some of the council members, we get a complaint in for, let's say, a non-life safety issue from an individual, one individual. The city goes and opens a case and goes out and does the work. If we get multiple complaints from one individual, we do the same thing. So the policy that we're looking at implementing before we deploy city resources to address those non-life safety issues is a policy that we would call U+2. So you and 2 of your neighbors and in other households have an issue, not unlike some of the abatement processes that we went through just a few weeks ago or a month ago, would need to sort of come together in order to address the issue. It becomes more of a neighborhood issue as opposed to what some had determined or what some had deemed sort of a retaliatory process or a spite-driven process. So that's a policy direction that we're looking at going for, again, those non-life safety issues. The other sort of focus or policy direction that we want to deploy for, again, looking at code compliance in the community with the overall objective, again, of making sure that our community, and I think the mayor and some of the other council members spoke about it earlier, is this sort of imagery of our community. What does the community look like? So we really want to focus on blight. And just a couple of pictures, not an IB, just so we didn't, identify those. But really taking a look at issues, kind of like one of the justices talked about, an issue, you know it when you see it. So if there is an issue out there, we really want to focus on those areas that are going to have really almost intelligent-led sort of code compliance. You've heard Lieutenant Brown talk about intelligent-based policing. We want to deploy the same sort of process and, again, work with not only the sheriff and the fire department and our marine safety folks to, again, look at issues that are a blight upon the community, but also address more than just one issue. And so, again, making the community a more aesthetically pleasing place, and at the same time, it makes it a safer place and just has greater benefits for the entire community. The other component, and I don't have a slide, but I'll end on this this nice photo, is really a new procedure to look at how we, when we have to go through an enforcement process, when are we going to start the abatement process? One of the abatements that we had before you a few weeks ago really had like tens of thousands of dollars worth of fines, and it went on for years. So we would like to have the ability to deploy that process a little bit earlier, so we don't necessarily get into a situation to where a situation sits out there where there are numerous, complainants, and a property just sits there and nothing happens to it. So we want to accelerate that, and we find that will likely be a good approach based upon we had actually 2 abatements that were going to come before you, and one of them got resolved. beforehand. So again, this is a brief report out. What we're looking for is a sort of a concurrence on this sort of new strategy that we would like to deploy. And in summary, they are the U+2, a blight focus, and an accelerated abatement. With that, I'll stand ready for any questions you may have.
We'll do public comment first. So with that, we have Mark Williams. Mr. Williams has some time donated. I think you were talking about doing it under 5 minutes. Is that correct?
Hi, Mark Williams, 3748th Street, Imperial Beach, over by the bay. I'd like to comment about what you just presented. I'm all for it. It's actually very well done. A little nervous about the abatement procedure, but you know what? Let's try it. The way it's currently being done is punitive, it's abusive, and it's not correct. Would like to talk about some of the things I brought up last month or in September about this, if you don't mind, and talk about how we communicate to the citizens. We need to stop sending certified letters. I think I've made that comment out there. I'd like to see that become a procedural vote because I work in Rancho Bernardo. I won't get a certified letter for a week or two sometimes because I can't get there. And it goes to the post office for me. They're not open the hours I'm available. So that to me is a problem. Plus it's abusive, it's intimidating. We don't want to do that. We want to be friendly. Go hang something on the door. If that doesn't work, go hang it again. If that doesn't work, then send the certified letter. Let's follow a common sense approach. Be reasonable. Hearing officer results. I think that need to be made public. When we have a hearing, we need to see what the results are. We paid for it. Everybody should see it. Likewise, when we do go for code enforcement, I think it'd be good if we put that out there so everybody can see exactly what's going on. Having it on the website, it's very little effort. We can put lots of stuff up on the website. It can grow quite easily. And that's something I would love to see because it'd be nice to see what property you're talking about because when we're going to have a complaint, I'd like to drive over and take a look and see exactly what the problems are. I think that's reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you for that very brief, but also very, very nice, concise summary and your good, positive feedback. Kim Frink.
Good evening. My name is Kim Frank, and I live at 1320 Loudon Lane in Imperial Beach. And I had the opportunity to attend the workshop in September. And one thing that was mentioned was a community visioning process. So I just wanted to say I think that's a wonderful idea. It sounds like it's been a long time since the city has done something like that, and I think that the timing might be just perfect for IB. I also wanted to mention there was a lot of discussion at the workshop about RV storage and the code compliance issues related to that. So I just wanted to mention that I recently sent an email to the mayor, council members, and executive city staff, and would just like you to consider possibly deleting section 10.36.110.c of the municipal code that addresses the profile of the RV to the street and prohibits the parking of RVs within setbacks. I did some research on the city of Poway because I know they have a lot of RVs and boats there in their city, and they have no such restrictions. Basically, and I called them just to confirm, as long as your RV doesn't have someone living in it or isn't parked on your lawn, it's not a problem to have an RV in your driveway. I don't really think there's a need for a stipulation that requires residents to park the RV a certain number of feet from the sidewalk because the city allows residents to park their large pickup trucks and SUVs within the setback. And some RVs actually are a little small pop-up camper actually has a smaller footprint than a Chevy Suburban. So it's actually smaller than some SUVs are. And as far as I know, residents can also plant tall hedges within their setbacks. So I don't think, in terms of blocking vision, things like that, there's other things other than RVs that can potentially have issues. So I think it's in the city's and residents' best interest to remove barriers that prohibit residents from parking their RVs and boats in their driveways. I think recreational vehicles encourage outdoor recreation and promote healthy, active lifestyles. And I heard earlier in our meeting today about how, Imperial Beach is really interested in promoting health and well-being in the community. So I think promoting a healthy, active community is consistent with IB's direction and with Imperial Beach's 2013 designation as a Live Well San Diego partner, which is focused on developing policies that support healthy, safe, and thriving communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that concise and very well stated presentation. Time for council comments. I don't have any. you like to go, Mr. Patton? Okay. Thank you. Oh, wait.
so-
Do I have more? Oh. Please continue.
Thanks for the presentation. It sounds like, from what I hear from the audience and from you, that we're looking at this as a positive approach. And I'm just kind of curious. It's almost a catch-22 for people with RVs. You know, and you could park it at storage for $1,500 to $2,000 a year, and but then you're at catch-22 because then when you want to use it, now you have to park it on the street to load it to get it ready for a trip. Now you're infringing on people's parking, and then if you unhook the RV, if it's you get a ticket for $80, and so it's almost a big can of worms. So personally, and then we have elderly people, not you, but we have elderly people. Making that clear here. You have elderly people who, you know, if they have to park down the street to go load their RV, and I'm not talking about a motorhome, I'm talking about like a travel trailer that you have to hook and unhook, and there's a big difference. And if you get a ticket, it's called a heavy equipment. That's what the ticket says. That's what my ticket said, heavy equipment. Now, some elderly person that has to walk down 4 or 5 houses to go load one load in the refrigerator and back, then another load in the refrigerator, and some dishes and some sheets. You know, it's just not fair. So I personally, hopefully I didn't lose it, think that we should maybe just look at that municipal code 10.36 in the future and kind of let's take a better look at that and see where we stand on that. And so we have a real solid foundation, so we're not kind of wavy on it. So that's how I feel. I think it's I see some benefits of it, but also I see a lot of reasons why it doesn't work for our citizens of Imperial Beach. I mean, if Poway can do it, why can't we? Not that we're Poway. Thank you, Mr.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Patton. I don't. Councilmember Bragg, would you like to speak, or?
Sure.
So we'll just go down the line.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of questions, and maybe the city attorney can answer them. They were brought up by members of the audience. The reason why we send out a certified letter.
That's typically because we want to have proof that they were actually served with the letter. So I'm not sure what stage that was in the process, but it was probably farther down in the process rather than just the initial noticing. But Mr. Holden would probably know better.
So it's not the opening gambit is to get a certified letter.
I doubt it.
Okay, there's Jack from, perhaps Jack, maybe you would like to take the microphone as well. We may have some questions that you could answer. I was just trying to get a sense of, have the audience get a sense of, you know, the natural progression that we would go through. I mean, your first contact with somebody is not a certified letter, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Typically, we have a door hanger. We start with a door hanger. Then we do a courtesy letter, or 1 or 2. Then we, with a notice of violation, we usually send out certified, so that actually the administrative citations go out by certified letter. NOVs don't always. The notice of violation doesn't have a fine, but the administrative citations do, so those go out by a certified letter.
Okay, thank you. And then the hearing officer results was brought up by Mr. Williams. Are there any reasons why we do or do not do that? Is any of it a matter of privacy for somebody, or is it all matter of public record?
I think the results would typically be a public record, but I haven't looked into that specifically. I don't think there's been any request to kind of put that information affirmatively out on the internet or online, or. But we could, if it was something the council wanted to do, we could potentially look into that.
Okay. Well, you know, we have our agendas, and those go out. This is a matter of public record when we are forced to look at a property. So, you know, unfortunately, if it gets to that, then, you know, your neighbors are aware of what's happening. But I was just wondering if there's a reason why we don't ever go forward, you know, after the hearing and publish results, or do we do that?
No, we don't. It's a good idea, I believe. We have hearings perhaps every once a quarter, really, where we go in there, have a code compliance aspect. Have a lot of hearings on parking tickets. That's almost monthly.
Okay. And those hearings are open to the public. Anyone can, I think they're done in here.
Yeah, in the community room, they're open to the public. We get a letter, results from the hearing officer, and it essentially just goes in the file. We've never thought about, I don't know if there's a privacy issue or anything, but it's a public record, and we could publish it.
Okay. I would be in favor of us doing that only because, you know, when we've had some of these issues before us on the dais and we've had members of the audience and maybe they weren't able to be at a council meeting or maybe they weren't able to go to the hearing, but at least they know that their government was working for them and this is what the outcome was. Because I know so many times where, you know, maybe I've walked by a house and I often think, well, I wonder what happened there. So I think the resolution is important. And I think it's important that the community realize that these issues are really about compliance, you know, and that's our first step is friendly compliance. A couple of other, and I think Ms. Frank brought it up about the parking, the RV parking in driveways and the issue of maybe the tail end or the front end extending onto the sidewalk. I think that's the main issue. If you know, if somebody's being forced out into the street or a stroller or a wheelchair, that's our concern there. So some of these I think would have, obviously have to be a case-by-case basis. Then my question is on your 1, 2, 3 here, your U+2, the blight, and then the abatement. Those are in no particular order of priority.
No.
Okay, so then obviously the blight priority could percolate up from council direction as to be this is the one that's most important to us.
Oh, certainly.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
What that blight priority is really looking at doing is that coupled with the sort of U+2, and if I may, that really I think is intended to address a lot of the concerns that both you and Council Member Patton had brought up about. I mean, it's always a case by case, and so I think what that filter does is it really makes it a larger issue for the reasons that we talked about at the meeting. But you're absolutely right. The blight focus or anything else, if we have an issue out there, these are all just sort of policies that we want to sort of refocus our energies and our limited resources on, so we get the sort of the best sort of results with the limited resources that we have.
Okay, great. And then, you know, about the abatement acceleration. And I do appreciate that. You know, we did have a case that did go on for years. And I think that we lose credibility with our community if we don't resolve them sooner. So obviously the abatement acceleration I think is important to us. I know it's important to me. Some of these issues that have gone on and you say to yourself, well, government's slow, but it shouldn't be that slow. So obviously, especially if, you know, with safety and welfare, you know, what we find out with some of these properties is that, you know, it looks pretty bad from the outside, so sometimes what's going on inside is even worse. So obviously tending to these as fast as we can be would really get my advocacy. The deletion of the code though, 10.36, I would certainly advocate bringing that back to look at. I'm always a little leery of taking a tool out of the toolbox, because sure enough, next week you're going to need that tool. It's in there for a reason. So but I would certainly be open to certainly be looking at it. Thank you.
And if I could just to respond to that, and I appreciate the comment about the code deletion. What we'll do on these policies is monitor. It's always wise to, whenever you sort of implement a new direction, is to make sure and do some data collection about what sort of results are you getting back to find out whether you need to modify that. If it continues to be an issue, then it's prudent to go through and do a code amendment or implement a new policy. So once we go down this path, we'll be collecting that data, you know, putting that together, and we can even report out, you know, maybe in a few months to indicate, hey, you know, this is what we're doing, this is what we're seeing, and hopefully we'll see some of the results visually as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Spriggs.
Great. Along those lines of well, I think this is a great change and a good approach, and this is a good example, I think, of us having a successful workshop where a lot of community input came in, a lot of council discussion took place, and now, you know, about a month, 5-6 weeks later, we have something to move forward with. And so I commend you all for doing this, and I think it deserves a try. to move forward with this. So I really support it. I guess the one thing I would, going back to the workshop where you had developed some criteria for what would be considered blight or actionable property, we don't really see that here spelled out. So I think that it's one of the things I feel a little uncomfortable with this because we do have the record from your presentation before, but blight property is not very well defined here in terms of a policy that we're going to authorize this evening, or you're asking us to authorize this evening. Is there some way to, so how do we know which properties will be identified first? That's going to go on outside of council scrutiny. There'll be actions taking place. We as electeds are going to get feedback from people, but we don't know what the criteria was that led to those actions in the first place. So that's just an example of why I'm uncomfortable a little bit about the generality of this report at this point.
Could I address that
Sure.
a little bit? Well, we've been directed to develop a list of blight, and we're going to be taking photographs, and we're going to provide you what is we consider blight. You may consider it art, and that'll be fine, and it'll give us a direction because it's in the eye of the beholder, and that's where it's a little gray, and we're uncomfortable with some of it, and that's why we're going to develop this list. Steve has already told us to get our list together. We're going to try to take photographs and forward them to you and Andy and everyone else to take a look and let us know if you agree with us. And that'll happen pretty soon because we want to get an idea quickly before we really take any action. Some are just obvious, but it's those gray ones that we want your direction.
So this is really just for direction to proceed to develop further specifics and an amended code.
Well, I think it's a combination of those things. What I had asked staff to do in terms of developing the list of blighted properties are to focus on our first off our major corridors in our community, because those again are going to be that sort of visual impact that we have, and we already can tag or identify what those are in our in our code as our major design corridors. So I mean, what we'd like to do is again utilize a lot of the information that the city has already gone through in developing and focus on those areas. And some of the blight components that we'd be talking about, and I do appreciate the comment, and what we'd like to do is go back and we will identify a lot of those things that are already inconsistent with code or direct violations of the code and focus on those. I think that what we would like to do, again, and this is a part of that report out, is to implement that sort of policy, come back, report out what that looks like and how we've been deploying it, and get better clarity on that. It's very difficult, not unlike Councilmember Bragg had talked about. Once we take that tool out of the toolbox, we wish we would have had it. So that's why I think the approach that we're taking, it's not just an individual approach. These three things work in tandem together. It's like a stool. If we take out one of those legs, it's not going to work really well together. So again, I think that the sort of this blight focus on these major corridors, the U+2 coupled with that abatement acceleration is really going to provide that methodology by which we're going to achieve the objectives, at least that we heard in the community. And so that's really the overall approach.
I think that's excellent. And one thing I would add that hasn't been discussed, and some of the public comment and some of what we've set up here suggests kind of a case-by-case approach. And I see some danger in a case-by-case approach where there's discretion on the part of the city in terms of which cases are considered, prosecutable or pursuable and which aren't, when they could be very similar and maybe a year later there's something identical that wasn't pursued. If we don't have, and everybody wants transparency, so this is consistent with the idea of transparency, is consistency and clear criteria for what's considered blight or not. I mean, yes, it gives people more that they can argue about, or maybe less because it's less discretionary. But it also lets the community know and lets individuals know what they need to do to tidy up or address the issues before anyone comes around. So I'm really for clarity as part of transparency and part of the effort to have our community be the best that it can be. We need to know, and if we have to have another workshop and discuss and argue the criteria again, well, after some trials and some examples and some photographs and all that, then so be it. But let's try to arrive at a consensus that is equally enforceable across the board for everybody and where everyone knows what to expect.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I would add this process is somewhat organic. It's going to change over time. I think it has changed over time, but we're probably not operating on the margins here yet. There's some properties that are clearly blighted, and it's easy to see those and define those. And as we start on those that are clearly blighted, we will continue to work with the council, and as we narrow in on what we believe is blight in our community, we'll bring that back for clarity. Right now, we're not marginal on some of these properties. Some of them are very clear, and those are the ones we'll concentrate on first. So.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much. It's a very a couple of words, a few phrases that I'm kind of framing around a common sense. Thank you, Mr. Williams. I like that approach. We had a really nice conversation last year and just kind of talked about this common sense approach. And then, Mr. Patton, you talked about nickel and diming, and I think your sort of feedback has also influenced the way that I see this as well as talking to lots of residents. And this has become a national issue. And in the post-Ferguson era, a lot of communities that have been nickel and diming their citizens with arrest and not reducing crime now then switch when court orders switch to nickel and diming their communities over code enforcement. A big article on the front page of the New York Times just came out about this. It was just shocking how punitive these cities were about to get money from residents just about on these minor violations. And so I'm really glad that we're, first of all, have intelligence-driven policing, which we've reduced the number of arrests and reduced crime, which is great. And I think this idea of intelligence-driven, common sense-driven approach to code enforcement, but more importantly, neighborhood revitalization and city improvement is really the way to go. And maybe blight, we connect that to health, and we have to have some framework. So it's really about health and safety. It's something a threat to health and safety. So I want to make sure there's a real focus on individual residents' houses here, but we're talking about public. Are we talking about public agencies, businesses, and multifamily dwellings and?
Yes, the whole gamut.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good because. I mean, I gave a talk, a little overview at the code enforcement hearing, and for me, the reality is some of the biggest blight in the city is owned by the city of Imperial Beach, as well as the AT&T, one of the largest corporations in the world, and the post office and some of our school districts. So, I think that's something. I think that's what residents always balance is the fact that we're really good at going after the little guy, and frankly, in a lot of cases, because they're folks without a lot of resources, but we've ignored the AT&T building for the last 25 years. So, and I know that's changing, so I'm really glad about that. I'd love to hear us address the issues that Mr. Williams and Ms. Frink brought up. And again, the fact is we're a very blue-collar, working-class community. That's our roots. And people have motorcycles, they have jet skis, they have boats, and they have RVs and trailers. And I think, we share those value kind of traits with Poway, although it's very much a higher-income community. And I think that's feedback we got from a lot of our residents. And, we need to make sure that we're not penalizing people for, having some sort of outdoor lifestyle. I get concerned about the public record. There has been a big debate nationally about this where a lot of prosecutors or DAs have put people's records on the web that they've arrested. And so what happens, that impacts their prospects for jobs because their employer will see that, or they're applying for a job and they'll keyword their name and all of a sudden their photo pops up even though they were never charged with a crime. So that's something we have to be really careful about. I'd hate to have, if we open a case, I'd hate to have us put something on the web and then it's guilty until proven, and it's kind of like you're guilty until proven innocent, and then all of a sudden their employer goes, oh, well, your house is dirty. You know what? I'm not going to hire you. So I think I understand the whole issue of transparency. I just like to make sure we're consistent with maybe how other cities have done it in a very fair manner. So maybe if it's a case that comes before the city that we're, in our court, our hearing process, that's one thing, but I have to be really careful about that. So, but again, I think the transparency thing is really important. But that's it. I want to thank the council for the feedback. I thought the public workshop was good. I definitely think the idea of maybe possibly coming up with some policy and then vetting it again at a public workshop, just getting a little more feedback is great. And you know, I mean, just the work that was done at Jeans Union and getting that chain link fence and razor wire done and getting rid of the garbage and cleaning that up was really, really positive. And I know we're talking about something else this evening that's along the lines where we're being a lot more proactive, and we're doing the same thing in the Bay where we're getting rid of chain link fences rather than just waiting for us, you know, for it to happen. So anyway, thank you. So I guess we've given you the feedback, and we don't have to vote or do a motion or anything. Is that correct, City Attorney?
Are you looking for a vote out of this,
No,
Steve?
No, I
You
think the
did one.
general direction,
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, is, yeah.
Okay. All right,
Thank
so
you very much.
Yeah, the consensus is, I think there's consensus we move forward. There's very concrete suggestions, and so I'd definitely be good to act on those suggestions and include those.
100%.
Right. Thank you. Resolution 5. Report 5.2. Resolution number 2015-7647, authorizing an 8-alley paving project addition to the CIP 2-year implementation plan FY 15-16 and FY 16-17, an appropriation of $1 million of 2010 bond funds to the 8-alley paving project and authorizing the commencement of the project design in FY 15-16. Public Works Director Levine will give a report on the item.
Mayor, council members, I'm bringing this topic to you tonight to engage in a discussion about the potential use of remaining 2010 bonds that are available for certain public projects. One of those being continuing the alley improvement program that was initiated pretty much in January of 2014. Maybe there was discussions before that as well. You're aware that we started the alley construction for 14 of those alleys, which are shown in this slide in blue. And those alleys are nearing completion. They should be finishing the paving to this week. And there's some fences and other things to clean up and finish up. But the pavement is expected to be done. Paving is expected to be done this week. You asked the staff back in 2014 to develop or to rank the conditions of the alleys in terms of importance relative importance for completing the paving on those alleys, and we did that. And we did the first 14 of those alleys, and that's what's going on now. The next sequence of alleys that were looked at, and we took those remaining 30 remaining alleys of the 30 that we first looked at, and you see that we've highlighted in red, most of those being up in the Bayside neighborhood, as alleys that would rank following the first 14 that we did. And that would bring us close to the $1 million according to the kind of the back of the envelope analysis that we did based on the work that was done in 2006, 2005, and 6 when the failed district was brought before the public. That would leave then. There have been a few alleys that have been completed by the property owners, and they've developed the property in compliance with the ordinance. But the remaining alleys that are shown in green are the dirt alleys that would be remaining after, assuming you wanted to proceed with the 8 alleys which are shown in red. The alley 5, which is up in the upper center, shown in green, um, um, it would be the next ranked alley in our list. It is estimated that we would be able to complete that alley because it's just a part alley. And let me just, if I could, show you looking at alley 5, which is the one I was talking about. This is alley adjacent to Bayside Elementary School. This is 10th Street. This is Emory on the left. And this is all paved down in here, down to Cypress Street. So there's just this small area up in here that's not included in the 8 alleys that I've just suggested to you that we might pave. Our estimate is that we could get this done for $50,000 or less. And so it's the reason I mentioned at the beginning of the discussion, you might want to consider adding that alley to this at not a large cost. This is looking at that alley from the ground level. You can see we're standing on the currently paved surface looking towards Bayside Elementary, and there are 5 properties adjacent to that. The next alley is alley 8, and I probably ought to go back and refresh where I was more adept at this. I could probably do it faster. I'm going to show you the next 3 alleys to discuss. These are alleys 8, 9, and 10, and they are adjacent to Encina Avenue and the Veterans Park being here, and the Boys and Girls Club. So alley 8 is one to the left or west, alley 9 is in the center, and alley 10 is on the east. And so I'd like to kind of briefly discuss those 3 alleys with you and what that what I see with those alleys. So this is 7th Street. Up here is Elm, and down here is Encina. This is the alley that I'm referring to. It's a dirt alley. There is almost no observable access from this alley to the private properties. However, there are utilities in that alley. My sewer lines go through there, for instance. So I need to have access through there. Paving the alley may not be the best answer, and I'm not proposing that we should include it in this alley of 8 that I've just discussed. This is what it looks like from Encina looking towards the north, from Elm looking to the south. The next alley is the alley 8 or alley 9, which is in the center of those 2 that I just mentioned. This alley currently is blocked off. There are no accesses on either side. It does have a storm drain system in it. It also has a sewer system in it. And this is the alley as you look at it. We have barricades on either side. It's not. It's just grass and whatever grows in there, and it's kept mowed down. We are blessed to have the property owner on the east side to help us do that. So anyway, that's the access through there. And this is a storm drain that's on Elm Avenue, and this is looking to the south. And on the other side of this was a storm drain inlet. The water from Encina flows down the street and then flows into this grass swale, which is a good environmental attribute, and then eventually can get into the storm drain that you see here. And alley 10, which is the easternmost of those 3 alleys, is located here. Again, there's a single property on either side. There is access used by this property owner from a gate that he's got in this corner here. This alley has a sewer system in it. It also has aerial utilities on it. So this is alley 10 from Encina looking towards the north, and this is the alley 10 looking from Elm towards the south, or Veterans Park over here. Again, currently I'm not suggesting that you want to consider paving that. I think there may be some other options that are available to us. This alley is down in the Seaside Point neighborhood. It's a dirt alley. It's an 18, I'm sorry, it's a 12, try that again. It's a 15-foot alley. It's not one that's used a lot. People use it for access to their backyard primarily. I'm not proposing that this alley be given further consideration for this project. Alley 31 is adjacent to it. I didn't identify the streets very well. This is Connecticut, Grove, East Lane, and Oneonta. The one I showed you, 30, is the next one to the next block to the west. And the last alley that's shown on that original map is Alley 51. Alley 51 is really not a city alley. When Mr. McDougall was our city attorney, there was an issue with a property back here wanting to have a development from this vacated alley. And since the city didn't own it, they were not allowed to build because there was no legal access in and out. And so there was an agreement made that if this alley was ever brought to city standards, the city would take it and maintain it. And so since it's not to city standards and it's not really an alley in the city's jurisdiction at this point, I'm not suggesting that that one be added to that list as well. Although that alley is in pretty bad shape. If you, maybe I shouldn't even call it an alley, but so I'd like to go back to that drawing again. Our proposal is that you, if you want to use the 2010 bond funds for this purpose, we believe that those 8 alleys would be a good use of it, and it would largely complete the dirt alleys in your city in terms of what we have responsibility for and the conditions that they are. And if you want to discuss the alleys that are in green, I'd certainly be available for questions on that.
Do we have any, thank you for that presentation. Do we have any public comment?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Patton, did you press the button or did I not move you? Okay. Any council comments? Councilmember Bragg?
Thank you. Mr. Levine, would you go over the math again, if we included alley number 5 and why you see the wisdom in including that in the 8 alleys?
Alley 5 is, let me just get it. Alley 5 is a primary access to some homes back here. And I'm getting a little too close, I guess. They experience mud and tracking and just dust and what goes on with the dirt alley with their primary residences. It's more consistent with what the other alleys that we've done or are doing, and in the ones that I'm proposing that are the first 8 in this presentation.
And what was the cost of doing that, and what would be the total cost adding it in?
Sure. We estimate that it would be probably less than $50,000 to do it. The construction costs under the old design with BDS engineering was about $35,000. You'll notice in the staff report we estimated the 8 alleys at 960. $965,000. So 30,000 puts you up pretty close to $1 million. And so, you know, these are all estimates, and I'm trying to be not running over when we get a bid. So that's why I stopped at the 8 alleys rather than doing 9 alleys. But I mean, certainly if the council chose to include this, we could do a couple things. We could do it as an additive, so that if the price comes in right, we would add it, or choose not to if it came in way over what we wanted. You could appropriate additional funds. It's eligible for gas tax. It's eligible for Transnet. There's Public Works revenue fund set aside for public work projects out of your CIP budgets. So there are some options to spend to be able to fund this or to include it.
Okay, thank you. The additive approach is pretty attractive to me. You know, we've been working on this alley project for a long time. For many years, I've sat in the seat and we've been working on it. So to be this close to fruition, to me, is pretty incredible. The paving of our alleys for so many of our community residents has been transformational. And we know that from, you know, the before and after. So if we could include this alley, I think that would be great. I did have a couple of just quick comments on alleys 8, 9, and 10. You said that in, I think it was alleys, for sure I wrote down 9 and 10, that you said they had sewer systems in there. And that was, so your advocacy really isn't to pave those, but it looks like they could use some. Is that correct? You're not advocating at this time? They'll never really be used for, one of them is blockaded at both ends. There's not a driveway, there's a storm drain. So we're really not ever in the near future envisioning using those as access for vehicles. That's correct.
I'm suggesting that we might not want to use them for access, or, you know, if you pave them, it's going to be, the neighbor's going to see a lot more traffic on it, and there's not a lot of reason for traffic to be on there. My thinking is that there may be a way that we could do something similar, if the neighbors agreed, to what you see on Alley 9, which is a grass swale in the center of it. There may be some ways to do that and provide access for their side yards if they need it. I mean, I haven't engaged in a conversation with them, but if the council's interested in looking at something like that, I would certainly be willing to see what the neighbors would like to have.
Okay.
But I don't know that it's worth the expense of paving the alleys.
Okay, thank you. If you could go back to the slide for alley number 8. I think it's the no, it wasn't that one. Maybe
The one in the center, the one that's got grass?
No, the other one.
Okay. 10.
There was
this one here.
There was another one, and the fences on either side were starting to collapse, and there was a.
Oh, that was I think it was.
That alley 5.
Alley 5.
Okay.
You want to look at that?
Well, I think that, you know, in our previous discussion, and we were looking at possibly being able to describe blight, and, you know, the old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. To me, that was a pretty blighted alley. So I think that we could agree with that. And, you know, alley 5, it has a lot of mud. And so, you know, so if we could, I think everybody, Mr. Levine, I don't want to have you go through some angst on this, but
okay.
There was
this alley here you're talking about?
Oh, it was another one. That's
okay.
That one.
Okay.
Yeah, that one. You know, it looks like the
one
fences
on the
are
west side.
okay. Yeah, the poles holding up the fence, and they're, and I know this alley is, pretty muddy. Some people walk through it, they cut through, but
Right.
it's in a pretty high profile spot in our community, so we can do a better job with our alley. It would definitely be, to me, this describes blight in a small fashion. Anyways, thank you.
May I ask for clarification? Are you suggesting that this one be paved?
No,
Okay.
but to me, it's blighted and it could be cleaned up.
Okay.
Thank you.
But Councilmember Spriggs, possibly paved in the future? I guess that's what I want to make sure we're clear. Right now, we're just talking about direction to do what's being proposed, the 8 alleys plus an addendum or an addition. And then we're having discussion about potentially future scenarios. And you're just recommending that this is blight, which I think there's consensus that it's pretty awful. That must be
But
okay.
putting in alley number 5 as an addition,
Yeah.
if the pricing comes in right.
Councilmember Spriggs?
I agree with alley 8 as an add alternative. If you get a low bid that allows it to be incorporated, I think that's a great idea. Alley 5, my bad. Alley 5.
Thanks, sir.
I also think that looking forward, you mentioned, the availability of Transnet funds and gas tax funds, etc. And you also mentioned that not all the alleys really need to be paved, but rather possibly cleaned up and with a grass sort of swale created to absorb runoff and that sort of thing. I think it would be, I think we're really, I'm hearing a good consensus. I think your proposal is excellent on the 8+1. It would be nice to see your plan for the completion of all the alleys in one fashion or another. Swales, cleanup, paving, whatever, so that we can see we're so close, as Councilmember Bragg said, to the light at the end of the tunnel. Let's just get it the plan, even if we don't have all the money and we don't have it all sourced yet in terms of dollars, for what your treatment would be. I don't think it's like we need it tomorrow, but just to know, and for the community to know that we're closing the chapter, on the unfinished alleys in Imperial Beach. So I'm really all for moving ahead with this. It's great to know that the first phase is almost completed now, and that we're moving into the second phase, and hopefully we'll get a good bid so that we can include alley 5. And maybe even if we don't get a low bid, maybe there's resources along the lines that you've suggested, so that when you come back after that bid and it's not able to be included, maybe we could still include it in the award if it's bid out that way with additional funds. So if it's bid out, then we can include it. Doesn't matter what the funding source is. So I would suggest that we definitely include it as an alternative.
If I may, Mayor, on the alleys that are down in Seaside Point, those 2 alleys down there, are you including those in this long-range plan as well?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. All the remaining alleys, regardless of what their condition is, if they're not paved, to be included in the next phase, not the present one where in the red, but the next phase that you have in green, with proposals from you when you're ready for what your proposed treatment would be of those alleys and an estimate of the cost. You've already outlined it, so we're real close, within a stone's throw of being done here. Thank you.
Understood, sir.
Yep. Great job.
Councilmember Penn?
Yeah, I agree with the 8 and the +5. Find the money for it. Let's get it done under the same bid. That makes all the sense in the world. And as for next phase, since I've been a council member up here, I've heard it's not to do with alleys. It has to do with streetlights. So now that we're done with this 8, can we move on to some streetlights and for safety reasons. And if you could put out, I know you have a chart of the communities that or the neighborhoods that can most use the street light. And next time we have a bulk of money, I think that's where we need to direct our money to. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
If I could address that. I mean, you approved in the 5-year CIP plan the installation of lights, street lights in according to the engineer's drawing that had been developed in 2005 or somewhere in there. We've just completed the alley, the lights between 13th and 15th. I have for this year to do the lights between 10th, 11th, and 13th, and the fiscal 17 we'll be doing lights between 9th and 11th, and we'll work our way across the city. So we put in 36 new lights this year, or this last year. We're still trying to get the last 2 illuminated. Bureaucracies working with bureaucracies is frustrating. But I need to get the next list to SDG&E. We had to install, I think, 4 new light poles in the area that we just completed, and largely because there are restrictions of where you can put lights on certain poles within SDG&E. There's limits. You can't put a light on every pole, not because the region can't necessarily get a light on every pole, is because you have to have spacing between the light and the utilities that are on there. And if there's utilities going across the street and the pole and the light is under it, then there's restrictions there. So it took us a long time to work through all of this. I don't know how many times we went out there with SDG&E.
Okay, well,
we have a plan for it, and we're working on it.
I'm glad that you've got the 36. I didn't know personally that they were put up, and I think that's good news. But I think since we're making news about cities, I think certainly you should put out the news that we're getting our city lit up appropriately. Thank you.
I think the sheriff's captain has said that he contributes some of the changes in the incidents you see east of 13th Street due to the improved lighting in the area.
Fantastic.
Thank you. So just consensus that, and we'll vote on the motion, have this addendum, but the other consensus seems to be that we definitely need a plan to identify paving all the alleys. I don't think it has to be, and then on the lighting, I don't think it's either or. I think we have a lighting plan. It might be good just to have an update on that at a future council meeting. And more importantly, we inaugurated our alley paving project. I'd love to see a much more public celebration acknowledgement of the great work you're doing on lighting. Maybe the next round we have or when we finish, we celebrate with the community. And we need to get that good work out in the community that we're actually doing, and to the council that we're getting stuff done. So do I have a council member that would like to modify the motion that we have in the record so that we can add this addendum, or do you want me to add something?
Well, if I could help, essentially, if you're going to do 9 alleys, then everything in the resolution that says 8 would be changed to 9.
Fine, that's it. Okay.
And then there would be the addition of $50,000 of gas tax money that would be used potentially towards this project with the addition of Alley 5.
Okay.
So if you want to make a motion for the resolution, including those modifications, then staff can do that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. For a second, great. Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously by those present, Bill Bray absent.
Thank you very much, Mr. Levine, on that. Now we're on to item number 5.4. This is resolution number 2015-7646, supporting state legislation enabling the city to request and process State Highway 75 relinquishment. Assistant City Manager Dish will give a report on the item.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. This is a resolution that is spanning the area of is that up? Oh, sorry. All right, try that again. This is a resolution for support of state legislation that would span the area of Highway 75 that runs within our city, as depicted upon this graphic. The resolution, what does it do? Again, simply it supports state legislation and that would allow or permit the city to initiate a process of relinquishment. And relinquishment is a fancy term for the state, basically what the cities do when we vacate right-of-way of streets. The state would vacate Highway 75, the city would own it. So again, this resolution is simply support of legislation that would support that. In the staff report, I briefly spoke of some of the elements to consider relative to relinquishment, and there are certainly financial considerations, and there's also permit authority considerations. The financial considerations, and again, not looking at getting into any depth this evening, because again, the resolution is simply to support the state legislation that would enable us to pursue this if it made sense to us, is the cost to fix and the cost to maintain that road. The permitting authority is also an element to consider. It would provide for local control, and what that means is that the design of the road and the time considerations with processing those applications. And the costs of permitting are also design and time, and those are not coincidental because there is a lot of design time and back and forth that staff and consultants spend going back to Caltrans for the permitting, and time can kill deals, and it can also really define what your built environment looks like in terms of whether it adds to street trees or would allow for bike lanes or just an alternative cross section. So I wanted to provide just a couple of quick examples of some projects that had extensive discussions with the state as it would relate to access. And this is an example. This is actually 9th and Palm, the site plan for 9th and Palm. And you can see on here one access point along this stretch into the site. There's an access point over here and an access point over here. I was not at the city during this process. However, in discussions with the engineering staff that had worked on this, there were a number of design alternatives that were identified. This was what was landed on. But again, there was a lot of time and effort and redesign that went into that. Under that local control, that back and forth would not occur. Also, another example is McDonald's. That was actually a site that was had gone through the entitlement process in 2013. As you all know, it probably just actually opened here within the last probably 3 or 4 months after its remodel. And there was a lot of back and forth with Caltrans redesign and a lot of landscaping issues that we had to take into consideration. So again, those are just some of the examples that you would consider. But again, those financial considerations and the permitting authority considerations would be looked at if the city decided to go down that approach. This resolution tonight, again, simply supports state legislation, authorizes the city manager to send that resolution to the assembly that would support and carry that bill that would then allow us to initiate that process if we chose to do so and it made sense for IB.
For that presentation, did you want to make?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that even if a bill was passed at the assembly and then ratified by the Senate and signed by the governor, it would not obligate you to relinquish the road. This just enables us to finish up the preliminary summary report from Caltrans and then give you the information you need to make the decision. This does not obligate the city to relinquish the road. I just want to make sure that that's very clear.
Mr. Spriggs?
Thanks for the report. Just wanted to, this has quite a history that goes back to, at least in recent times, to the Palm Avenue master plan project, where it became clear that in order to do any significant changes on Palm Avenue, anything that we would have wanted to do on Palm Avenue seemed in that master plan to run afoul of Caltrans um, regulations that are immutable, really can't change. So that's where I think our consciousness first focused on the relinquishment idea if we were going to, make any major changes on Palm Avenue. But you're raising another issue, and that is, even for the development of along Palm Avenue, that the commercial zone there, they're permitting. It's a complex two-level permitting process that could inhibit really good projects on Palm Avenue. So I think that's a good point. We still don't have really good quantified pros and cons, cost benefits for relinquishment. At one point, we were supposed to have a meeting where we would consider a document, I forget the name of it right now, from Caltrans, PSSR, right, which would have given this council Caltrans's analysis of the costs of maintaining Palm Avenue and the perhaps even what they would be prepared to provide us if they relinquished it. I don't know. Maybe that's a separate process. But it seems to me that we really, in looking at this resolution, we really still have to keep our powder dry about whether we're going to accept relinquishment or not. I'm a little bit concerned, and this is kind of a point to the city attorney, who has a big role in drafting the resolutions. And I'm sorry I didn't bring this up well before the meeting so that we could have had a conversation about it. The resolution itself doesn't make that point very clear, that we're not really committed. The points that are made very well in the report, in the analysis, the last couple sentences or so that you and the city manager have summarized, that it does not mandate the city to seek relinquishment, but merely supports legislation that would authorize the city to do so. And if the city were to seek relinquishment, all those details would come to the city council first, and we'd be unfettered in making a decision, pro or con. Those are really important points for us, it seems to me, as a council, but they're not really in the resolution. The resolution just sort of omits those points. So I think I'd be more comfortable if we inserted in the whereas clauses, that information, going forward. This is a big deal. I mean, we're looking at several millions of dollars probably, and the maintenance of Route 75 through Imperial Beach over the years is going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we don't want to get ourselves. We want to make sure that a future council looking back, if this gets delayed, and that's looking at the resolution that was passed, that resolution reflects that we still have those options available to us.
You bet. If the council is inclined to include those recitals, we can add those recitals with an affirmative motion of the council, and before the resolution is executed, we can add that language that you had mentioned, if you'd like. Again, if the council's
right.
Perfect.
Well, I know other council members may have something to say about it, but I'd like to come back to this point with, depending on what they say, with possibly a motion to do exactly that. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for the streamlined presentation. It's not about money right now. It's about our options, about moving forward, not moving forward. Adding on, Caltrans in the past had given us some numbers that didn't quite equate to what we believed it cost to take over. So there's a lot of things to look at, and as what Mr. Spriggs said. If that is something that doesn't tweak this whole resolution too much, I would second his. If he does put out a motion, I would second that.
I know we're not talking about actual relinquishment, but where this fits in the state government. So Governor Brown's had a policy of sort of trying to reform these ossified sort of bureaucratic agencies that actually do very little and really impede the state moving forward and involving our residents and improving the quality of life. And they've done that with Fish and Game. They turned into Fish and Wildlife, tried to make it much more proactive. State parks right now, they're trying to do that to make it much more proactive and responsive and be able to deal with, especially with urban residents. The governor's also very working very hard on the reforming Caltrans, which arguably is probably one of our more inefficient, sort of bureaucratic and ossified agencies that, frankly, if you look at the history of Imperial Beach, has done almost nothing to improve Highway 75. And this is it's an issue around the state. That's why the city of San Diego took over Rosecrans around the, what's that project called? Liberty Station, and vastly improved it. One of my first actions as mayor was to meet with Lori Berman, our Caltrans director for San Diego County, with Senator Marty Block and City Manager Andy Hall and former City Manager Greg Wade, just to say, hey, is there a way we can actually get crosswalks painted? I'm obsessed with the fact that Caltrans can't even apply a coat of paint to Highway 75. And she said, I'll get back to you. And in a subsequent meeting, she said, yeah, we can't do it. They can't even paint crosswalks. Now, she should say, we're going to do it for McDonald's, for the McDonald's area. Well, they did it for McDonald's, but only on one part of the street. So they actually didn't do all 4 areas. They only did one area. The permitting for the 9th and Palm project cost $250,000 in fees and time. So the fact is, if we do relinquishment, though, in the future, I know we're not talking about it, but we're actually going to get money from Caltrans based on the amount of money they've never spent on improving the highway. So Caltrans' goal is to never, literally, and this is what's been admitted to us by Caltrans directors, their goal is to never spend any money on that road. They literally have a strategy of never doing anything to improve that road, which makes it even just impossible for us to do anything. And we have to get the Navy, for example, to pay to improve the lights because Caltrans refuses to do it. So I've asked Tony Atkins, Speaker of the Assembly, to help out. They got back to me, yeah, we can't do anything about it. So they're the ones sponsoring this legislation because they know that it's a big deal. It's a big deal throughout the state, and I know our city manager had some experience with this in Cathedral City. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know there. But I think putting the caveats or the whereas is important. But I definitely think it'll be really important to really identify, get some data on how much, more importantly, hasn't been spent on by Caltrans, and really, what we're spending now. It's my understanding that we actually spend three times as much per year on maintenance of that road than Caltrans actually does. So, and as even without the master planning process, we want to improve that area. This is going to cost us a lot of money. So, anyway, that's it. Mr. Spriggs, did you want to add your whereas or your?
Yes, I would, and I would ask that we refer back to the analysis part of the report and to those last 2 sentences, and that we summarize those last 2 sentences as the 2 parts of the whereases that need to be included, which aren't in there right now, which is that the resolution doesn't mandate the city to seek relinquishment, but merely supports legislation that would authorize the city to do so at its discretion. And secondly, that the city would pursue relinquishment, if the city would pursue relinquishment, a comprehensive analysis of the financial considerations and permitting authority benefits would occur and be presented to the city council.
So does someone second that? Then you made the motion. Is that you're making the motion, or?
So I'm moving that we approve the resolution with those additions.
Great, thank you. Please vote. I love consensus-driven approach. It's very nice. Thank you, guys. Now we're into 5.5, the last item of the evening. I'm sorry. We did vote.
Motion carried unanimously by those present, Bill Bray absent.
All right, now this is kind of the best and coolest thing of the evening. All right. Item 5.5, consideration of license agreement to utilize private property located northeast of the intersection of Seacoast Drive and Date Street, and the authorization of city manager to execute license agreement. City Manager Hall will give a report on the item.
Mayor and council, as you know, I've been fighting with the mayor. I'm trying to get some lots cleaned up, and he likes them the way they are. But we have talked to a couple of landowners, and this one in particular I think is important to the community. Not just kidding, of course. But there's a real opportunity that we have. I've had an opportunity to speak with Mr. Lasoy, who's the lot owner of the parcel that we're talking about, which again is just on the intersection of Date and Seacoast Drive. He's indicated a willingness for the city to be able to use that property to remove the chain link fencing that's there now, and maybe use use all the property as we would see fit. And what staff is proposing is that we enter into a license agreement that would allow the city to use that property in a temporary manner until that property is further developed, and that we work with staff and maybe even some of the community groups to improve that property, to maybe have some outdoor dining. As you know, the pizza, street taco, wave cafe area, there's not enough outdoor dining. If you've ever been down there, there's just simply not enough. So maybe to include some outdoor dining in that area, and work with some community groups on some beautification projects. He is not asking for any money in return. There's no there is good consideration for the license agreement. I shouldn't say that he's not asking for anything. We would have to pay him $1 a year for the good consideration to use that property. But again, there's probably, I hope there's no reason to go into any more detail than that. We're asking for approval for execution of the license agreement so that we can begin that process as quickly as possible. We heard back from his attorney. Our attorney has reviewed the license agreement, and I think we're really close and ready to go. So looking forward to any questions the council might have, and if not, looking forward to approval for entering into the license agreement.
Yeah, Mr. Patton.
And I assume that standard city insurance policies cover that as well, like it's a park or in any public area?
Correct. Part of the license agreement is the release of liability from the property owner to the city for those public uses, and we would include that in our liability coverage. That's correct.
And then how would the dining be set up? Is that something that a community group would come up with, or who's going to design that, and who's going to approve that?
Yeah, right now we have asked Rad Labs to give us at least a tentative layout of what could happen there. They've given us some ideas. We will also be working with the businesses there to see what kind of tables. I also had an opportunity to talk to Mr. Earp, who's the manager of the hotel, saying, you know, would you guys be willing to participate perhaps in an area where your patrons may be eating and some of those kinds of things. So I think it'll be a collaborative effort, but we'll make sure to bring more information to the city council as we get it. It has not been designed. We didn't want to be presumptuous, but we have had pretty intense conversations with the landowner, and I think he's very willing to allow this to happen. Yeah. And by the way, he's allowed us to park there for sun and sea and whatnot, so he's trying to be a good citizen.
It's a nice space, and you know, I'd encourage even a growing zone possibly for some vegetables, since I'm a vegetable lover myself.
Okay, I'm glad you clarified.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. Councilmember Bragg.
Thank you. This is a great use of an empty lot for using it also for economic development. And we all know that, you know, the pizza place and, like we said, street tacos and other restaurants that are down there, sometimes they lose customers due to a lack of seating. And we all were commenting on this a little bit earlier. So this is an excellent use of a vacant lot that, let's put it bluntly, in the past was blighted. And
it is blighted now. Yeah.
Exactly. I just want to make sure that as we move forward that we are ever mindful of having an ADA component, so that the ADA is considered in there. And Mr. Lasoy has a long history of being letting us use, way back to the days of Sandcastle days, he would let us park cars there or whatever we needed to use. So he hasn't been the best landlord, but he's been a good partner in letting us use that lot over the years. I'm glad that you know, even though it is temporary, he has decided to let us use it. Mr. Hall, I really want to give my hat off to you. You know, when during your interview process, this was something that this council and other colleagues really stressed, was that we want a city manager and a staff that had vision, and I think this truly complements our idea. So thank you.
Mr. Spiggs.
I think this is really a win-win. You know, it's a small deal, but it's a win-win, and it's exactly what we need in terms of, you know, beautifying our community and making it more user-friendly for the community and visitors alike. So I'm delighted. I'm glad Mr. Lasoy is willing to do this. That's a good reflection on him and on the city. I did have one or two questions I wanted to ask. Is there a mouse down there?
What's going on? We got a mouse?
I think it's gonna blow. Just kidding.
What's going to blow up? We got El Nino coming? Is it Godzilla down there? You okay?
Everything was about to blow. Sorry.
Okay.
It's just a computer. It looks like it lost a fan.
Okay.
Okay. Well, the question was had to do with doing this right is really important in terms of the maintenance of the area, the cleanliness of the area. If people are going to be eating there, you know, who's picking up, who's cleaning up. Are folks who frequent the liquor store for those drinks that were talked about by the Reverend earlier are going to be hanging out there drinking their drinks? Who's going to watch that? I'm not trying to look at this as a glass half empty, but these are things that could happen. And we need to think about as far as that lot not becoming a more occupied eyesore than it is an unoccupied eyesore right now. Could you, either one of you, talk a little bit about what we're going to do to address those kinds of concerns?
Yeah, you bet. In fact, in our staff meeting today, we had that very conversation. And as you know, there are ways to design public spaces so that they don't end up with those types of uses. And there's been a lot of studies done about exactly how you do that. We plan to implement those kind of strategies to make sure that it does not become used for the wrong kind of uses. Again, that's part of what we've engaged with a group called Rad Labs, and that's one of the things they specialize in is how to reuse or rethink public spaces to eliminate the kind of challenges that you're talking about. And so we do have at least a draft proposal from them. We are right now costing it out to see what part makes sense. I think that Councilwoman Bragg made a really good point that at least one of the locations there should be ADA accessible. So that would have to be probably near the corner of either the alley or date where it would be easy to access for a person with a disability. So again, I think the effort so far has been to engage with Mr. Lasoy and make sure that this could be done. Now that he's agreed to do it, we will certainly pay attention to the exact kinds of things that you're talking about, making sure that it doesn't become a hangout for the wrong kind of people, making sure that the businesses who I've already talked to, I think the businesses are very willing to help us keep the area clean. They need this area. They are losing businesses. I think most of them don't have enough outdoor dining. And when people have to stand around and wait for a place, and they don't have any indoor dining either, to be honest. The Wave Cafe has a little bit. The other two just don't have any indoor or outdoor dining. So we plan to engage the business owners in some of the maintenance of that area. We also want to make sure that IB Beautiful, what we want to do is the bare minimum, kind of get it started. This is a temporary use. And then add on to it as we go. But the big thing right now is to remove a chain link fence on Seacoast Drive that kind of, it ends up being that people throw stuff over the fence, and even if someone wanted to do the right thing and go clean up the trash, they have to put ladders up on both sides of the fence and climb over it. So, know something about that. But the reality is it makes it hard to even maintain that area with the fence around it. So I think as much as anything, getting the chain link fence down, creating some kind of a public space, but again, not a magnet for the wrong kind of people, is going to be a positive thing for the community.
So some of this ideas on these empty lots, Mr. Hall and I went to Las Vegas for the International Shopping Center convention, which was for me a nightmare, spending any time on the Strip in Vegas into the Las Vegas Convention Center. But the best part of it was going to downtown Las Vegas, where Zappos has put $350 million into revitalizing downtown Las Vegas, which was basically an entirely blighted area. And we actually visited one of their hallmark projects, which is a shipping container commercial center, which is genius. It's one of the coolest things I've seen. And in Mexico City, I actually managed to meet Maggie Shu, who works for Zappos and was the point person on that. She said she'd be more than willing to host a visit by Imperial Beach to visit what they've done. So that was really cool. And anyway, Rad Labs has done the Courtyard project in the East Village, where they transformed the blighted project, you probably know about that, into a super cool space. So I think we're talking about, but I think this idea is this is part of this whole neighborhood revitalization process, getting rid of blight, and then really doing community visioning. So we're actually, I think the idea is that, right, grow some food, put some, maybe a butterfly garden. I think all the ideas are open and really involve the community in that. So just 2 words. I won't do 5 suggestions like Ted Cruz did the other night and forget everything. Totally awesome. This is great. So anyway, so with that, I'd like to entertain a motion to authorize the city manager to execute a license agreement with Mr. Albert Lasoy. Right. Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously by those present, Bill Bray absent.
Great. Okay, we're all adjourned. Thank you.